The COP28 summit has adopted its first ever UN climate deal looking to transition away from fossil fuels. The deal, however, lays down no mandatory phase out. Amid the conflict, the carbon footprint of the world's top militaries has come under radar, especially the U.S. military, as most of its emissions of greenhouse gases find no mention in any records. Two reports dating back to 2019 claim that the U.S. military emits more than all industrialized nations like Portugal and Denmark. For decades, the United States has been lobbying for an exemption for military activity. The exemption was removed in the 2015 Paris talks, but reporting of military emissions remain an option. The U.S. military has the largest global presence, and many experts describe it as the biggest emitter. A study says militaries around the world account for 5.5% of global emissions. A UK-based think tank compared that with civil aviation, which accounts for somewhere around 2%. Scientists say data sets published by militaries are incomplete. Military emissions ranging from flying jets to sailing ships to training exercises were left out of the 1997 Kyoto Protocol. According to a report, NATO's total carbon footprint rose to 226 million metric tons in 2023, from 196 million metric tons in 2021. The report claims NATO's average yearly military carbon footprint is more than the total annual greenhouse gas emissions of many countries. At the COP28 summit in Dubai, nations have been directed to transition away from fossil fuels. The European Union says that for the first time in 30 years, the deal signals the beginning of the end for fossil fuels. However, experts and climate activists point out that with time, leaders also need to account and be transparent with data when it comes to military emissions as well. Okay, for more on this, we are now being joined by Louis Torrent, international consultant on climate change. He is joining us live from Barcelona, Spain. Thank you so much for joining us on WION. So what is your reaction to the deal reached about transitioning away from fossil fuels?
Hello, Suzanne. Thanks for having me in the show. Definitely, I think we're living a historic momentum right now because for the first time in the last 2 decades, the final agreement of a COP makes an explicit mention to fossil fuels, something that has been pursued for a long time, and it's been avoided because of the pressure of petrostates. And for the first time, there's a specific mention not to phase out, as many claim that should be the right wording, but to transition away from fossil fuels. And this has at least 2 major implications. The first one is the recognition that fossil fuels are indeed one of the root causes of global warming. And the second one is those so-called petrostates need to start developing a new development model to go away from fossil fuels. The third implication is that it's not explicitly mentioned yet, but it needs to be seen what's the scale of this transition, what's the funding involved, and how this will happen.
And the carbon footprint of militaries, including the U.S. Army, has generally been brushed up under the rug. First of all, how justified is that, considering global security, national security, and how can that be corrected?
Well, the U.S. military army is not usually on the debate because of its invisibility, let's say. No one knows exactly what their estimates about its carbon footprint. But as you already mentioned before, it's been out of the scrutiny, probably deliberately. And some negotiators said during the COP28 that it was the elephant in the room. And as you already mentioned, estimated carbon emissions from the U.S. military are equal, are equal to some states like Denmark or Portugal, which are indeed part of the negotiation process. So the U.S. Army is aware of its impacts, and they indeed also have a climate strategy. Several military armies have climate strategies, but no one knows for certain if what they claim that their impact is, it's actually true, because the transparency mechanisms are not very well enforced. And this is a sensitive area, of course. It's the defense of the largest military army, or one of the largest in the world, and the US is kind of secretive about this. But one thing is for sure, the US Army creates a lot of damage, environmental damage, and it's largely fueled by fossil fuels.
All right, very interesting. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this important topic, Luis Tarrant from Barcelona, Spain. I look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Thank you.